Dr. Aisha Al-Malki, the chairperson, Manai, Father Bishanti Anba Pishai, revered fathers, distinguished guests, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure and privilege to be an integral part of this interesting and very important dialogue on interfaith. The world is changing. I was talking to Archbishop Macarius a few minutes before I come to the dais. He was asking me, being a banker and economist, is the world is improving? Is it changing? Since I was there in Washington last month. My answer to him is, the world is still reeling under pressure. The financial economies are still converting as real. The real economies are redefining the scope and performance. What has changed is liquidity. A liquidity crisis has become a funding crisis. Funding crisis has become a solvency crisis. It's become a sovereign crisis today. The world at large lost its character and commitment in terms of global governance. That's the substance. What has changed is money supply. Money supply has improved the liquidity, inflated the market, inflated the housing market. Consumer price inflation was on. America is recovering. Europe is still, monetary policy is centralized and fiscal policy is decentralized under pressure. Japan is printing money, trillions of yens in the open market operations. Again, trying to inflate the world. That's the only change. Essentially now, America is going to stop these bond buying programs or money supply program. What is going to happen to the rest of the world is a question. While the real economies, commodity-driven economies like Gulf, financial economies are reeling under pressure, real economies like the Gulf states where we have 45% of the world oil, 20-25% of the world gas comes from, we run a good governance. The capital adequacy is high, the banks are stable and functional, and again, these economies are functional in terms of gross welfare to the mass. Our inflation is under control, answering to Archbishop. Our financial stability is second to none. It's a public-private partnership model. That's the reality. But the substance is why the world has gone into the crisis because of the lack of ethical and moral commitment. That's the reality. Investment banks printed structured products as a subprime note and distributed world over. It infected the world. It transcended borders, infected real economies as well. What has started as a financial crisis became a human crisis today. Eradication of extreme poverty, gender equality, child mortality, universal health care, environment sustainability, global partnership. These are set in mission for United Nations Millennium Development Goals. Are we closing the gap? Still a long way to go. Food security is a major concern world over. As on date, the population today is 6.8 billion, is going to be 9.1 billion by 2050. Food security is a major issue. You have a global warming and climate change which is destabilizing the world. We have seen Gonu in Muscat, Oman, destroying complete Quram. Rising sea level, increasing temperature, extinction of animals, deforestations. The world at large has to come to terms to create this planet, enduring its values for future generation. That's the subscription. Today, more than 50% of the world today is younger generation, less than 25 years. We need to create a better world and pass it on to them with the value systems which are second to none. We need to deliver the core values to make sure our children and grandchildren are well off than our generation. It means we have to create a knowledge society. That's what Qatar is trying to articulate. Borrowing money, $800 million, way back in 1998, issuing Islamic Sukuk, and investing in Qatar Foundation. Today, it's a world-class education center. Whether it's economic progression or social progression or political progression, here is a country of substance and substantive compliance. That's what we try to articulate in this welfare society. World has to come to terms by defining the right kind of ethical and moral governance. Universal standard has to be established in terms of universal solution. That's why G7 has become G8, G8 has become G20 today. They're going to meet next week in Brisbane, Australia, to make sure policy decisions which are going to have sustainable world, Sustainable world is not the present generation alone. You have to create future generation well off than the present. How are we going to do it if food security is not fixed, alleviation of poverty is not going to be done, and again, climate change is not measured and managed and controlled? Carbon emission needs to be reduced. That's why countries in the Gulf where maximum per capita emissions, we are concentrating on solar, wind, and renewables to make sure we come to terms in terms of alternate. We have to realize governance is not outside, it is within us, we as individuals. You are the change. The attitude and the commitments, the value systems which we have, we as persons, is self-responsible for self-realization, integrating your heart and mind, ensuring you answer to yourself, inner voice is eternal. If you're a good person, you can build a good society. If you're a good society, then you can build a good nation. Good nations build good United Nations. It is not the other way around. We are the change. We are the character. We are the commitment. We are the source of inspirations. And we need to change to make sure we answer to us every day. We reconcile and make sure our heart and mind is synchronized. Today I saw the content. Extraordinary themes have been set in. It's not only the concept note, following children are the reflection of you. Who are the children? It's our essence of parental. That's nothing but your bone, flesh, meat. Everything is integral part of your substance. And we have to guide them. Today's world is Confucianism. Digital advantage. They are not location-centric. They are information-centric. We don't have territorial integrity anymore. It is borderless. Look at the geopolitical tension world over. You can only integrate if you believe in single world. One single world, one single community, one single dignity, that is humanity. And that's what we need to articulate. That's where we need to come to terms. We have to bring in human prosperity. Dr. Aisha was mentioning about Arab Spring. Communism has changed. Capitalism is alternating in form and substance. Social justice, freedom, democracy, and human dignity are the driving force for human values. These values are very much inherited in a country like Qatar. That's why we are differentiated in substance and substantive compliance. We have to recognize these changes are inevitable with the changing face of the world. It's Facebook world. We are only content providers. It's Google world. We are only content providers. Transparency is a better perspective. Transparency has to come in your own ethical practice. You as an individual, you as a parent, you as a substance. You set of generation, you can guide them by moral and ethical principle-centered values. Whether you're an individual or institutions. Countries or continents who live beyond your means have to pay a price. That's addiction today. That's what the conversion today in terms of global arena. In changing face of the world, we as a team has to respond to create better society, to create knowledge base, and this knowledge has to transcend as ethical and moral. Character and commitment is not indifferent. It is interdependent for you to self-generate values which are going to last to your children and grandchildren. You can never advocate values to your children unless you are practicing in a principle-centered form of governance. It applies to corporate like me. Doha Bank has a committed vision. With a commitment, country is setting a tone, knowledge sharing. That's why I'm here, to share the knowledge. To make sure the society, the real wealth is knowledge. You can build money. Where was Qatar 15 years before? As I mentioned, it borrowed money. It used the committed vision and today converted as a most prosperous economy, highest per capita income. That's not come out without substance. That's come out of convergence and futuristic options to make sure the children and grandchildren of this country, great substance, comes to practice. That is the precise reason why this dialogue is going on. This interfaith values are going on. Ethical and moral governance is what we try to articulate as an institution. As Doha Bank, we pronounced 10 years before as a green bank. We will reduce the carbon emission. We will clean the beaches. We will showcase every knowledge sharing forum, me and my team. We will make sure participative leadership come in. We make sure shared leadership comes in. Shared governance comes in. We ensure futuristic values all about ethical and moral governance. Making sure your banking practice is total and it is, whether it is public or local, it is global, it is public. That's the diction we try to articulate as an institutions. As a value systems, I'm sure, with a committed vision of this country, with a knowledge base which is evolving to be a fine combination. Every single individual today is excited about Qatar. The story of Qatar today is par excellence world over when you transcend borders. You know, here is a country of just 11,943 square kilometers sitting, Security Council presidency, securing United Nations General Assembly presidency, sitting universal governance in terms of standards, whether it is policy making from RAND to Qatar foundations. The articulation is very simple and straightforward. Build a society which is straight, honest, committed, values, and you build a character for generations to come. That's the message. That's the diction for this great country of substance and substantive compliance. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your kind attention.